Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mercatus Podcast, Digital Grocer, Episode 4, recorded in our studio at Mercatus HQ. You know, Mark, it's deep blue skies out there in downtown Toronto.
Yeah, the sunny streak continues.
You got to love summer, right?
It's fantastic.
It's crazy. So I'm your host, Sylvain Perrier, President and CEO of MercatusTechnologies, and joining me in the studio today is Mark Fairhurst, Mercatus' own Senior Director of Marketing.
Welcome, everyone.
And at the board is our sound engineer, Kevin Glenn.
How's it going?
You know, guys, we have a topic today that most people aren't talking about. And quite frankly, some of them are very uncomfortable talking about, not just in retail, but amongst us technologists, especially in the context of building new and emerging web technologies. And quite frankly, to a greater extent, when you build hardware, and you guys know my background, even before, building websites and mobile apps, was designing hardware. And it's about ADA, the American Disabilities Act. And specifically, not a lot of people know this. It's a civil rights law that protects individuals that are disabled against discrimination. Now, before we decided to do this episode, I did a little bit of research, and this stat here blows me away. And it's from the U.S. Census Bureau, that 1 in 5 people in the U.S. have a disability. Wow. And that's huge. Mm-hmm. And I really want to be honest with the people that are listening and be super transparent and clear that these people are our friends, our families, our coworkers, and are part of our communities. And they really deserve better when it comes to technology. Now, you're going to hear a lot of things out there about ADA. You're going to hear stuff about what's called Wcag 2.0 and apparently recently 2.1. And Wcag stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And this was developed in conjunction with the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, with a bunch of individual partners and so on, to kind of give these guidelines that are out there to help groups. And to understand how do we build technology and tool sets that makes it that much easier for people that have accessibility issues to be able to consume kind of all these new and amazing technologies that we're coming up with. Now, this has become a very hot topic for the last 2 years. And there's multiple reasons for that. I think what we're seeing in the context of ADA, and again, this is my opinion, this reminds me of the days of patent trolls, where these organizations are cropping up. And I'm not dismissing the whole civil rights aspect of ADA, which I think is really critical. But we're seeing organizations that are cropping up out there that are just blindly scanning a retailer websites, rightfully or wrongfully, and they're issuing letters. And a lot of our retailers that are out there in the market, not just in grocery, I think anyone that's operating a .com, quite frankly, are getting these letters and they don't know what to do. And worse than that, it's not ingrained in their processes and their culture to cater to that 1 in 5, to be able to support them properly, and to avoid having to deal with this. And there's a landmark legal case. And I had McMillan Binch here in Toronto as our law firm. And this came out from the same time last year, June 13th. And they had them pull the judgment from the judge. And it was Gill versus Winn-Dixie. And it's a bit of a landmark because we're seeing now it's setting precedents in the space and saying, at a bare minimum, if you're building a website or if you've built one or if you're hosting one and you own one, you need to comply to ADA WCAG 2.0 level AA. And that means a lot of things. And I really want to get to the meat here of what the topic is. So we've enlisted some experts. And I'm super biased because we're about to start working with them. Mm-hmm. And they're out of Minneapolis, Accessible 360. So on the phone with us today is Michelle Landis. She's a co-founder and VP of Business Development and Strategic Partners. And Eric Slezak, who's a client development consultant. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. So can you guys help situate the audience? Give us a little bit of history on your firm and what is it that you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, at Accessible 360, we are a very fast-growing company. To your point about this emerging need out there in the marketplace, we're committed to making the digital world a more accessible environment for all. And what that means is that we help companies audit and fix current websites and mobile apps, and or work with agencies or platform providers who are also doing the right thing and developing accessible platforms from the ground up.
Excellent. So can you demystify for me and for the listeners the notion of 2.0, 2.1, specifically around WCAG?
Yeah, so the guidelines sometimes can be confusing. There is a lot of information on the web about this topic, which means by default there's a lot of bad or misinformation about this topic. So to be very clear, in all of the hundreds of audits that we've done so far this year and that we've done for the past years, we have always used WCAG 2.0 level AA. And there are, as you referenced, multiple layers or levels of conformance, A being entry level, AA being the one that is used across our industry, and other credible vendors that do the work that we do as well also use AA. It is also the standard level that is incorporated and written into European laws in the UK and in Canada. So from our perspective, the auditors, there's no question about which level you audit to. It is always Wcag 2.0 level AA. You mentioned earlier that 2.1 was just announced last week. We will be rolling and moving forward to that as well. But just please keep in mind that just because those were published doesn't mean that they're either being called out in any of the litigation. There's no case law regarding 2.1 obviously yet. So those will take some time to be incorporated into the industry.
Great. Now, Michelle, I think it was last week or maybe a couple weeks ago, I received a phone call from a prospective client. Mm-hmm. And, we were talking about ADA compliancy. And so I asked them the question, had they ever faced a lawsuit? Do they know if they're compliant? And their CIO was on the phone, great individual, knows the space through and through, and said to me, not an issue. We ran a scanning tool on the website, AA. We came out in flying colors, and I'm literally on the edge of my seat because I've been working with you guys, and I'm like, I kind of said, I don't think that's enough. Can you maybe share with the listeners? Is that enough?
No, it's not at all enough. I'll say a couple words and I'll toss it over to Eric for this. Eric used to actually sell one of those scanning tools. The scanning tools are a way to get an initial pass through a website. There's a lot of independent studies about every scanning tool out there on the market. They're inherent with limitations. They can only test certain parts of it. And one of the best studies that we reference all the time is one from the UK, and in which a group independent from any accessibility auditing companies built a website with 143 known accessibility issues in it. And they ran every scanning tool through, and the average success rate was somewhere around 25-30%, some went as high as 40. However, those that are free and those that you are asked to pay for had about the same success rate. So our takeaway for the audience is this: don't ever pay for a scanning tool. You can run a free one through your site if you're dying to know. But you are correct. It is not at all a validation of accessibility or usability. The U.S. government has a statement out on their Section 508 compliance page. It says that manual testing is always necessary, and it is always necessary. Just as if you couldn't run a scanning tool through any website or platform theme that you wonderful designers and developers make, and a scanning tool could say, this is beautiful, this has awesome UX. You have to test it. That's why there's a thing called QA. That's why when you're building technology, you need to test it. So scanning tools are not the end-all be-all. And in fact, many companies are really understanding that now. They came out a few years ago, right, Eric? And you had some experience with one. Do you want to share with the audience what that was like?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Scanning tools, they can give you a little bit of understanding of some issues on your site. They certainly can't help you get to that compliance standard, and they're going to miss out on a lot of things. I get a lot of questions from prospects as well. What kinds of issues can get missed by a scanning tool? And I think, as Michelle mentioned as well, when you're building a site for accessibility, you're building that for people and not a robot. So a great example would be an image alternate text, and not to get too technical here, but simply a description of an image on your website so that people who can't see that image understand what it's there for and what purpose it conveys.